Welcome to the Nightly News Podcast. It is time for everybody's favorite guest, Student Activities Director Adrienne Thoman, for the monthly visit to the Nightly News Podcast. Adrienne, thank you so much for stopping by and chatting about what we have going on in May.
Thanks for welcoming me back.
But of course. And of course, we are also joined by one of our Nightly News reporters, Kathleen Tarr. Kathleen, thank you very much for coming back. I know we had you on with Sarah Shaw last term. I'm very glad you were able to join us here on this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Certainly welcome. Well, Adrienne, obviously every single month, the calendar gets more and more full. I don't understand how, like, at some point, we're going to need a different calendar because, honestly, with April, and now I'm looking at the May calendar, you're running out of room to even put more events.
I've been struggling. Sometimes, like, everything hits on the same day, and I try to get them all in the same box, but it's really difficult sometimes.
I'll tell you, you do a wonderful job with the scheduling. So, I mean, anybody who says there's nothing to do on this campus needs to come have a little chat with you. I
agree.
And in fact, if I hear somebody on campus saying that, I say, you need to go talk to Adrienne immediately.
We can give them plenty of things to do.
Well, Adrienne, speaking of which, there are a ton of things going on. I would like to start with something that I have a small hand in, and that is the live stream. By the time that this is aired, we will have live streamed 4 games for our Central Penn Knights men's baseball team, some of their home games. We've been wanting to do this for the entire term, basically the whole month of March, but the Knights had 11 cancellations or postponements. Several of those were home games, which we were intending to call.
This Pennsylvania weather is out of control.
This has to be the worst. I mean, Kathleen, do you ever remember a winter that's just hung on like this?
Never. It's absolutely insane. Who would thought in April we'd still be getting snow?
I mean, well, yeah, and I think Brian said a couple of days ago it snowed to the point where the grass was still covered in snow. So hopefully we get some nice days coming up soon. But it certainly wreaks havoc on the college baseball schedule. There's no question about that.
I feel bad for the guys because they really have been wanting to get out there and play, and they haven't been able to.
Well, one of the things that we've been doing is obviously we've had the opportunity to live stream several games so far. So I do just want to put in a shameless plug for what we are doing with the Nightly News. On Tuesday, May the 8th, you can tune into the Nightly News YouTube channel and tune into a doubleheader with the Knights taking on Manor College for a home game. So that's going to be a really awesome experience. We've had amazing feedback from the first few games that we've done, and it's a lot tougher than you might think. It's one thing to just throw up a camera. And I know that some schools just put up a camera and stream it that way, but we actually provided play-by-play for the entire 5 hours of the 2 games. And Adrienne, I'm sure that you have done this. I know you worked in radio. 5 hours with no break. No commercial breaks.
It's a long time.
So we had a lot of fun doing it. I'm shocked I have a voice at this point, to be honest with you.
I think it's amazing that you guys are doing it, though. Like, not only is it such a great experience for our students to be able to be a part of that process, but then here on campus, like, I'm not always able to make it to the games, but I really want to be there and I really want to support them. So to be able to, log in and catch that, it's awesome.
What's really interesting about doing it on YouTube, that was one of the biggest pieces of research that we actually had to do, is a lot of people are going with Facebook Live now. And I have no issues with Facebook Live. I think it's great. But we decided to stream to YouTube for a couple of reasons. Number one, here at school, instead of the screenscapes we used to have, we now show YouTube clips. Well, I don't know if you noticed, but yesterday, Joe was able to get the games on the screenscapes all around the college. So it was playing in the underground. It was playing in the front lobby. I mean, that was really neat. But also people with smart TVs or Roku devices can log right onto YouTube, watch it from their TV at home, which I think is good good too. And finally, they archive everything. So as soon as the game's over, as soon as we stop, it's archived immediately to YouTube and it's there forever. Whereas Facebook, it's a little tricky to get those videos down, and the interface I don't like as much. So I was concerned about people finding it, but people seem to find it okay. So I'm really, really looking forward to this opportunity. Let's just hope the weather cooperates. So that's Tuesday, May 8th. The first game will start at 2 o'clock. Second game will start about 20 minutes after the first game ends. We did take a quick break between games, but that was only about 20 minutes. So check out the Knights taking on Manor College on Tuesday, May 8th at 2 o'clock on the Nightly News YouTube channel. Next thing I want to talk about, and now I'm done with my shameless plugs for the episode. We've got a lot of huge things coming up. A couple specific events, Adrienne, I'd like to talk about are some of the commencement events that we have. Obviously, May is such an important month for so many Central Penn students.
Yes.
As commencement comes on May 11th. But we have two really, really awesome events coming up in May. Would you like to chat about those?
Absolutely. First of all, as a staff member of the college, commencement and all of the excitement around it, it's truly one of the most special times. What we do here at the college, it's all about seeing you guys walk across that stage. So super excited. And we also now have these other special events surrounding commencement that we get to help to celebrate with you. So I know down in Lancaster, they're actually doing an alumni night and new grad toast. It's going to be the Lancaster Barnstormers, the Clipper Magazine Stadium there. So it's going to be a lot of fun, casual, a game, a toast. They're going to have a whole experience. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's happening down on the Lancaster side, although it is open to not just Lancaster students, it's open to all of our students. Same thing with the commencement eve social. The night before commencement, we do kind of a classy upscale event that we're going to have in our conference center. Jazz music playing. Professor Huntsberger is going to be there with his crew. We do a special champagne toast with all of our new grads and really celebrate them. Faculty and staff come out to join and just give them a special night to celebrate what they're doing.
So Kathleen, obviously you are planning on graduating before the end of this year. Are you, even though it wouldn't be as fresh as in, you just maybe graduated in the winter, are you still going to be a part of the commencement activities next year?
Yeah, of course. I've learned so much from everybody here, and I would love to give back and help in any way that I can. The school and everybody here has taught me so much.
It's funny, though, because I talk to a lot of different students, and people have different opinions on commencement. I've talked to some people who absolutely were going to be there. I always went to mine. I thought it was just something that, and honestly, it's not just for you. Mm-hmm. And that was the best thing that I ever heard was, yes, we might not all want to go through the whole song and dance, but it's not just for you. It's for your family and your friends and the people who have been there to support you and your professors to a certain point, because to see you, I'll tell you what, when Norm walked across that stage last year, I was so proud of him. And obviously Yuli and Sherry and Cy will be walking this year, and I look forward to you and several others from the club graduating next year. In a selfish way, I'm very sad because I hate when I lose my great students. But obviously, you are here because you have future goals, and in some small way, I hope that we all hope that we're helping you reach those goals.
It's always it's this weird feeling of, oh my gosh, we're so excited for you, but we're so sad for us because we're gonna miss you. Like, we love having you guys on campus.
It's the same way for us. We're so happy, but we're so sad that it's the next chapter in our life. But we're so sad that we have to leave this one. Like, we have to grow up, and we have to pay bills, and we have to do grown up things.
Oh, not fun.
This commencement, to a lot of people, either they love it or they hate it. Like you said, for me, I love it because it's a chance for me to get all of my family and all of my friends together, because they're all in different cities, they're all in different states. So it's a chance for all of us to get together. A lot of, the ones that are older, they might not like it because they might feel singled out. But for me, I like it because I can finally say that after so many years in college, even being past 22, that I finally have done what I've been trying to do for over 4 years.
Well, I mean, I certainly don't think that you've went at a very quick pace since you've been here. So I certainly don't think that you're any further behind anybody else. But to be honest, what's it going to mean to you? Yes, but what's it going to mean to your family to be there?
Oh, it's going to mean the world to them. They're going to be ecstatic. They've been my biggest supporters through all of this. Even though some of them are almost 2,000 miles away, I called them right before this because they actually called me while I was in class. And I was like, what's wrong? And they're like, oh, nothing. They're like, we haven't heard from you in a few days. We wanted to make sure you were okay. Aww. I was like, Dad, I'm in class. Can I get back to class? They're like, oh, yeah, sure. Go get back to class. And I called them after. I was like, I have a podcast. They're like, oh my God, please send me the link after you're done. They're like, we loved listening to the last one. We love reading all of your articles. They're like, I love how proactive you are in this. They're like, I love seeing you grow as a writer. They're like, I'm really happy you found your calling.
I will never forget when I called some games back in college. I will never forget my mom. She, A, wasn't a baseball fan. B, I mean, she supported me all the years I played baseball, but she's never really much of a sports fan. But she listened to my first broadcast and called me and said, oh, we were sitting here. And this was, way before you could get stuff on your phone. You actually had to turn on a computer. Oh, we were sitting around the computer listening to you call the game. I mean, honestly, and that's what the point I was trying to make. And I always try to advise students to go to commencement because not everybody does. And for some, because we do the quarter system and we have students graduating at all different times. It's, maybe other schools, they're finished with their classes and then they walk, within a few weeks. Unfortunately, sometimes with here, if you graduate in December and you're not walking till May, or heck, even if you graduate in July the year before and you're not walking till the following May, sometimes it may lose that.
Yeah.
But I just try to talk to every student and encourage them to not just do it for themselves, but to do it for everybody else. Whether it's Adrienne, whether it's me, whether it's their advisors or professors, just seeing students that we've had in class walk across that stage it's a night unlike any other night that I have every year. It really is, and it is just such an honor for me to be there and see my students, making that next step and taking that next step in their lives. So please, Kathleen, I know it might be a touch anticlimactic because I know it's going to be a few months between, but please make sure that you plan on walking next year because it means so much, not just for yourself, but for your family and your professors and colleagues here at the school.
I wouldn't miss it.
Fantastic. Well, two big events. The first one's May 4th. That will be at the Alumni Night and Grad Toast at the Lancaster Barnstormers, and on May the 10th, the Commencement Eve Social and Toast for Graduates in the Conference Center. I know that you said that you are in charge of the Commencement Eve Social. Can you just tell us a little bit more about it and what people that come can expect?
I know that Kathy did an amazing job setting up the conference center last year. It was absolutely beautiful. Picturing like twinkle lights, and the big night was set up in the middle of the room. They have appetizers and hors d'oeuvres and things you can snack on. There are mocktails there, but then we actually do like a legit champagne toast.
Lovely.
Yes. Make it official. Nice music, high top tables set up, and it's just a chance, not too structured. There's not a lot of program. We get to hear a couple remarks. Dr. Federizi will be addressing the group and congratulating them. But really, it's just an opportunity for us to kind of hang out and socialize and congratulate our grads and celebrate them.
And if somebody would want to sign up for the Commencement Eve Social, how would they go about doing that?
There is a link in Student Central. As always, if you ever cannot find a link, shoot me an email and I'll get you what you need.
And that's Adrienne Thoman at centralpenn.edu. Well, we do have to move on. We have several other very, very important things to discuss here. And two of them happen to be coming on the same day, on Saturday, May the 12th. The first is Randy's Race, 5K run and walk, and that'll be at Adams Rickey Park. Looks like you're going to have a van departing at 8:15.
Yes, we're going to have a van. We're going to go. We're going to run or walk, whichever our students prefer to do.
How did you get involved with Randy's Race? Why is that an initiative that you think is important for the students?
It's actually something that historically the college has been a long time supporter of, which I'm very proud to say that we've had that connection with the organization. They do such amazing work for survivors of domestic abuse and their families, and I'm really, really glad that we get to be there and be a part of that and help to support what they're doing. Fantastic.
Second thing that's going on the May 12th is the Gamma Beta Phi induction ceremony, and that'll be in the theater at 2 o'clock. Tell us a little bit more about that, Adrienne.
Okay, so Gamma Beta Phi is a very prestigious group. It is invitation only. It's like our honors fraternity. So if you hit a certain GPA point here at the college, you are invited to join this nationally recognized organization. And they do an incredible induction ceremony. They bring in a member of the national office to come and speak, and everybody gets presented with their I think a certificate and like a packet of membership materials. And this group and the legacy that they have across the nation is not only one of scholarship, but very high focus on service. They actually are required to do, once they're members, a number of community service hours throughout the year. And they continue that throughout. It was really interesting to me when I was able to participate in the last induction ceremony to hear all the awesome things that members of this group are accomplishing and that our students are able to tap into.
Well, so all kinds of things going on here in the month of May. May 12th, we have Randy's Race. If you would like more information, you can register online in the Lincoln Student Central or certainly contact Adrienne. And if you are so inclined, you can come to the Gamma Beta Phi induction ceremony in the theater at 2 on May the 12th. All right, well, it's about that time that we've come to everybody's favorite segment, Adrienne's Featured 3. All right, Adrienne, tell us about some of the major events we have coming up in the month of May.
All right, number 1, we have the ATEC dance. So this is something we do almost every term here at the college. It is just a fun night to get together, dance, socialize, a blast. We do it in the conference center. We have DJ Bub, who's actually one of our students, that our homecoming king, actually, that is going to be doing all of the music. So he does a great job for us. The theme, wait till you hear the theme, 80s and 90s.
Oh, jeez.
So I can't wait. I'm already looking to find out what, I can find out probably in my own closet to dig out to wear. It's going to be so much fun. 80s, 90s, starts at 9 p.m., goes till midnight. And
snacks, mocktails, those types of things going on?
Usually we do. It depends on what the theme is. So I'll have to work with our activities advisory board to see, but they usually do try to add something to it to go with the fun.
Fantastic. So that will be May 4th. The ATEC dance starts at 9 p.m. Adrienne, what is the second event we can look forward to in the month of May?
Oh, number 2 is probably one of my absolute favorite days on campus, because literally the campus is overrun with dogs and cats and bunnies and all kinds of critters. It is Petapalooza.
Overrun by bunnies?
Well,
do they let them out of their cages?
Not just bunnies. There's everywhere. They're little I'm such an animal person. All those little doggies that are there, just make my day. And, literally, they're all over campus.
Explain to us how we got involved, because this isn't a Central Penn event. It's from the community, right?
Yep.
So how did we get involved with this Petapalooza in the first place?
Well, a few years ago, they actually were in a position. They had been at a location for a number of years, and they were doing construction or some kind of highway update that basically wiped out their location. So then they were looking around, and I actually was lucky enough to know the ladies that were chairing the group, and somehow we ended up lucking out and having it here. And it's so much fun because we get so many new people coming to campus, and it really is a fun day for all of us here as well.
But also another thing I see on the event calendar is that you're looking for volunteers. If volunteers are looking for community service hours, this is a perfect way to get 5 community service hours for a local organization. But let me ask you this, what would those volunteers be doing?
So they've had them do things like helping with the check-in, helping to do water stations, they actually do a lot of collecting of supplies that go to the different nonprofits, the pet nonprofits that are represented. So doing sorting and delivering of that. We've had them sell water and Gatorade, all kinds of different jobs.
Kathleen, are you an animal lover?
Of course.
Well, what types of animals do you like?
I love cats and dogs. Bunnies are just adorable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Petapalooza will be taking place on May 19th. It's a Saturday afternoon from 11 to 4. Volunteers are needed, so if you do need some community service hours, and remember, if you are getting ready to graduate, those community service hours do come due in your final term. Please make sure to email Adrienne Thoman. And looks like that might be an opportunity if you're looking for a couple of hours. Maybe you can help out during Petapalooza. All right, Adrienne, what's event number 3 for Adrienne's Featured 3?
Number 3, we are going with Festival of Nations on May 31st. This is another large annual event. It's put together by our Cultural Diversity Director, Diversity Committee. usually they bring in an incredible lineup of diverse performers, just incredible. And there's always really, really good food. Last year, I think it was Indian, and it was amazing. And then we had performer Irish dancers and the Chinese drummers, maybe. Like there were a wide array of performers, and they're all very, very good. And it's a super fun day.
Okay, what's your opinion on different ethnic food? Is there a kind that you like more than another?
I love Indian food.
You love Indian
Yeah.
food? Ethnic food, Kathleen?
I do love my curry, but I also like Korean too.
Now I will try anything once. We always go to different ethnic food places, and I encourage people who may not be very open-minded when it comes to food to just try it. And at least if you try it and you don't like it, then you know. But I'll tell you, there have been so many times that I've tried something that I thought I was going to despise, and I fell in love. And it totally changes your life. I mean, it really does, because if you just eat the same things over and over, it can get a little boring. So go to Festival of Nations on May 31st. That's from 4 to 7. Live music, dance performances, free food, vendors. There's all kinds of things going on.
And the clubs
at Festival
get
of
really
Nations.
involved in that as well. They usually have a lot of hands-on activities. It should be very interactive and fun.
Well, Kathleen, you said you went to Festival of Nations, I believe, 2 years ago. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you ran into that day?
It was a very interesting experience because there were so many different countries there, and they were all dressed according to the country that they were supposed to be portraying. Some were, they all made food. They either attempted or learned dances, and it was very intricate because if they didn't know anything about it, they had to do research. And I was very much blown away because it was all countries that they had either not heard of or only knew a little bit about. So they went out of their way and learned something about another country, which, for most instances, a lot of us don't do. So, taking the time to learn about another culture is really cool. That's why I like trying new food and going and traveling, because then you throw yourself into that country and you're learning.
Adrienne, if I remember correctly, last year it was inside, right? There we had bad weather that
It rained,
day.
yes.
Well, we are going to pray to the rain gods to miss us that day.
They have not been nice to us so far this season.
So hopefully Festival of Nations will be able to happen out on the quad. All right, well, just for a quick recap of Adrienne's featured 3, May 4th, you can look forward to the ATEC dance, and that'll be in ATEC, and that will start at 9 p.m. till midnight. May 19th will be Petapalooza. That'll happen throughout campus from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And keep in mind, if you need volunteer hours, Adrienne's looking for you. And finally, the last on Adrienne's featured 3, May 31st, Festival of Nations. That'll be from 4 to 7 on the quad, hopefully. Rain, if it rains, we will do it inside.
It'll be fun either way.
Well, Adrienne, as always, thank you so very much for your time to come down here and help us promote what you have going on your jam-packed activities calendar.
Thanks for having me.
And Kathleen, thank you very much for coming back for the Nightly News podcast, and we certainly look forward to having you back in a future podcast.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so for Nightly News reporter Kathleen Tarr and for Student Activities Director Adrienne Thoman, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll catch you next time on the Nightly News podcast.
Hi, this is Rabina Azizan from Career Services, and you're listening to the Nightly News Podcast.
Welcome to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller sitting in today with the Associate Registrar Caitlin Copus, and we are also sitting in with Nightly News Vice President Ian Kemmerer. Welcome to the program, both of you.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Well, Caitlin, the reason that we're having you down today is obviously we are heading into week number 4, which for any Central Penn College student, we always know that week 4 is registration week. Registration is a very tricky process. It can be if you don't know where to turn. Registration actually is quite an easy process if you do take advantage of the resources that we have available here to you on campus. And the number one resource we have is your office in records and registration. So some of the things we're going to talk about are the quarterly course registration workshops that you do here on both Summerdale and in Lancaster and for online students. So we'll chat about that here with everybody here in just a minute. But the first thing I want to chat with you about, Caitlin, this is obviously the first time we've ever had you on the show. And anybody who knows Caitlin Copus knows that when you first started at Central Penn, you worked in the admissions office. I'm curious how you went from admissions to the records and registration office. Do you mind just sharing with us how that transition happened?
Yeah, no problem. So I have been at Central Penn for about 6 years. And like you said, I started off in admissions. So I was a normal admissions counselor for a few years.
What is a normal admissions?
A normal admissions counselor. I mean, I traveled to high schools and talked with students and helped them through the application process and did all the fun stuff like Closer Look Weekend as they were getting ready to make their college decisions, and just tried to help them out as they were getting ready to start. But we always had a lot of students that would come back to admissions with random questions after they started, and a lot of those questions were about things like what classes to take. And so I had a sort of transitional role for a while where I helped our continuing education population, mostly evening and online students, as they were transitioning into life at Central Penn. And I started registering first-term students. And so I was doing a lot of work with course scheduling while I was in admissions, and then the opportunity came up to move to records and registration.
I will tell you, one of the things that I found when I first became a full-time professor, it's definitely changed since then, but I think that a lot of students, and I found this because I teach many sections of freshman seminar throughout the year, a lot of times students, when they come in, they had somebody in admissions that they were working with, whether it was, that point of contact that they had with the college since when they decided they were going to come to Central Penn to the day they actually showed up. Well, a lot of students I found actually thought that the individual in admissions was their academic advisor, when really they were their admissions counselor. And I think that it took students sometimes a term, maybe even 2 terms, to realize that yes, they did have an academic advisor. So I think that we've been doing a really good job to make that more clear to students. But I can totally see how, when you are a new student at a new college and don't know anything about the registration process or how to go about it, you probably would think that the person that helped you with your schedule the first time is that person that's going to help you every time. And I think that's a good thing that the people in admissions are, helpful as far as that goes. But that's not necessarily part of their job. Once the students arrive here at the college, we as professors do take them on as advisees. So that was one thing I always noticed that was a little tricky for students when they first started.
Yeah, 100%. And I know students, I think it's important for students to have someone that they feel comfortable with. So hopefully that person is your academic advisor, but there's nothing wrong with, talking to whoever you like on campus. But make sure you're asking, like, who's the right person to ask of those questions. Like, if you need help getting in touch with your academic advisor, if you don't know who your faculty advisor is, and that's pretty common that sometimes people just don't know, and that's okay. You can ask someone, whether it's, an admissions counselor who you know or whoever you know on campus, like, just ask to be connected with the people that you need to talk to.
When it comes to academic advisors, I'll tell anybody out there listening that you certainly can reach out to any faculty that you feel comfortable with. They don't necessarily have to be in your major. And I have several people who are my advisees that are not comm students, and I feel that I'm very capable of helping them. But where the faculty in your department can really come in handy is they might be able to provide you some insight with our course rotation. One of the things that we've tried very desperately to do, and a job I'm sure you've worked on, is coming up with our academic roadmaps. And I think that sometimes when you ask a faculty advisor for some help, a lot of that help that they can give you that other professors would not be able to is when courses are running and what modality they're running. And that's some of the insight so if nothing else, reach out to the full-time faculty in your department. And I think that can be one excellent touch point. So, Ian, I wanted to ask you a question here. You've been here for almost 2 years now?
Yep.
Okay. So walk me back to when you were first up here as a freshman, your first time. How did you first find out about the course registration very early on? You've been here 3 weeks. You already got to register for your second term. And how did you go about trying to get help with registration early on?
Well, like you said before, in your freshman seminar, I had Professor Rife, and he showed us that we should start looking at our courses now so that when we go to our advisors, we know what we're going to plan out to take the next term. He showed us a lot in my class. We used a lot of the degree matrix, and he individually talked to us and wanted to focus us right in our majors, because a lot of us were different majors, and I think he put a really help into us.
What was your thoughts, though, when you were sitting in freshman seminar? You've literally been here just a couple of weeks, and Professor Rife says, hey, you guys got to schedule your classes. Here you go.
I didn't know what to think. I thought he was joking, and I didn't know that in the third week we had to, start looking at classes. But once I picked my classes and I did another term, I was used to the system, and it showed me a lot, because coming here, I can end up graduating early. I would find a job most likely in my degree, and it's a great opportunity.
Well, one of the things that I take pride on is my advising of students. I was very fortunate to have a wonderful academic advisor when I was in college, and it really made all the difference of me graduating. And I do think that the academic advisor is very important. But the service that you offer here, too, is very important that we're going to talk about now, the summer course registration workshops. Now, this is something, and we'll get into the specifics here for this coming up term, for our spring term, but one of the questions I have for you is, who started this initiative, and why did your office address this as being an important initiative that you needed to do not only just once, but every single term?
We found that students need help with registration, not even just in their first term. So, I'm not 100% sure where it started. I think it probably started in a couple places and sort of morphed together between admissions and the records office. But we really want to be an additional resource in addition to the resources that you already have. So as we've been talking about, your faculty academic advisor is like a really, really important touch point for every single student. But we want to be an additional resource too, so that if you're having trouble reaching your advisor, or you're not quite on the same schedule that they are, come to our workshops, and we'd love to help you out.
The scheduling to me was always one of the toughest parts, because I'd have somebody email me and they would be available when I have class. Or maybe, in fact, I know in summer and fall, I have a tendency to teach more on-ground classes, because I'll teach that section or two of freshman seminar in summer and fall when we have heavier enrollment. So I won't be online as much. Like this term, I only have one on-ground class, whereas next term, I believe I'm going to probably have 3 or 4. So the more I'm obviously in class, the less opportunity that I have to meet with students. Here's another situation, to be honest with you, is I have a lot of evening students that, unfortunately, unless I usually get here around 6:30 or 7. Unless I stay till 6 o'clock in the evening, I have difficult. And you know what? It can be done over the phone. It can be done through email. But I really love to just sit down with my advisees at least once and walk through the whole process with them. One of the issues that we've seen in our department is we go over all of this as far as registration in CPC foundations. Well, the problem is that some students already transfer that class in. So while they've taken a class very similar to that, part of the purpose of that class is to introduce them to services on campus and to introduce them to the registration process, which unfortunately a lot of our transfer students just don't get, or maybe don't even know that. I've had advisees, week 10 saying, I didn't even realize that I had to schedule. No one really ever got that message out to me, or maybe they weren't looking at their email closely enough. So it's something that we, with the advisor portal, we've really been able to head off, because we can see who's not scheduled now, which unfortunately we didn't used to be able to do. So a lot of things have happened over the course of the last few years that have really helped us as advisors, but I'm sure also have helped records to try to get students scheduled on time.
100%. Yeah. And it's a big help to our office, and it's a big help every department on campus when you're scheduling on time. The faculty and the chairs decide what classes to offer based on registration. So if they're seeing that class sections are filling up, sometimes they can open extra class sections. If they're seeing that there's not enough enrollment in classes, sometimes they have to make the hard decision to cancel a class. So the earlier that everyone registers, the easier it is for them to make those decisions.
And often, and this has happened, I've unfortunately had a few classes canceled in my day. A lot of times it's really down to like 1 or 2 students can make the difference between an entire section of class running or not. So it can be very challenging. So I do want to talk a little bit more about the course registration workshops. They are going to be offered over a series of dates during both weeks 4, 5, and 6. The one thing that is important to note, that online registration closes Sunday, May 20th. And it's at that point when a lot of these decisions to open new sections or potentially close sections and cancel classes does happen after that time. So let's just talk for a second. Why is it so important to schedule weeks 4, 5, and 6?
So it's really important to schedule weeks 4, 5, and 6 because you want to get into the classes that you want. I can tell you that, there's sometimes that we see classes that are closed at the end of week 4. So even if you're registering during the period, but it's like week 5 or 6, sometimes the classes that you really want or need, they might be closed by that point. So registering early, it's helpful to our office and it's helpful to all the faculty and chairs, but it's also important for all of you.
And that's something else too. There's some classes, for example, like I'm teaching Com 101 online. We had to open a second section of that for the first time because it filled up so quickly. It is so important, especially for your core classes, to get into those classes during week 4. Make sure you have them because honestly, they're not just going to open another section for 1 or 2 students, unfortunately. Sometimes, there's some things that we can do to help students, but especially as you get closer to graduation, you have to make sure you are scheduling during week 4 and certainly 5 and 6 as well. Ian, another thing I wanted to talk to you about, unfortunately, you had a situation where you had a class canceled. Just talk to students in a general sense. How did that impact your schedule for this term?
It changed it a lot. Yes, before the term started, I had a course dropped, and they had to add a new one. Now that I'm taking 3 courses, I had a night class on Thursday. Now I have a class that's on Wednesday and Fridays, and they're both 2 hours. So it only took 1 day away.
But what if, for example, maybe you were working one of those days, or you had went into your work and said, here's my schedule for next term. That could have messed a whole lot of things up.
Yeah, I would have had to change with somebody else at my job, and I would have had to make more time to study. But it's a big factor to start registering for classes in week 4. Just so that you can get your first come, first serve.
One of the things that I've started doing is I've actually I take 1 full class period and I try to meet with all of my students and try to give them general advice, especially for major classes. I try to tell most of them, hey, you do want to keep up with some of your general education classes, but here's the classes that you absolutely need to take. Because, Caitlin, in many, the way our course rotation goes, some of our core courses are only running once a year and once every other year on ground. They'll run once a year on ground, and then if the following year they'll run online. So if you miss that opportunity, it's literally a whole year in some cases until we offer some of those classes again. Now, some of our lower levels will offer each term or a couple times a year, but I know that some of our 300 classes, they only run once a year. So it can be devastating if you miss out on some of your core classes.
That's true, and there's cases like that in almost every program here.
It's just partially has to do with the size of our school. And, we cannot run classes of 2-3 people. It would be wonderful if we could, but unfortunately it takes a lot of work on our end to have to do that.
I don't know. I took a class with 4 people in college once. It was a little rough. If you didn't know the answer, yeah, it was kind of tough to hide.
I've actually had a situation where I had a class of 5, but if a couple people missed class that day, it was almost like you didn't want to continue because more than half of the class would be missing. So as much as we love to stress small class sizes here, sometimes classes can get too small.
Agreed. There's probably a good happy medium in there.
And I think that's usually between 7 to 10 is usually about the happy medium for me, and to the point where it's not. I know a lot of students kind of like to hide, but it's hard to hide, like you said, with only a couple people. Well, Caitlin, on the last part of the show, I do want to talk about these course registration workshops, and then maybe you can give us a couple tips for success for if you're planning on coming out. So during week 4, we do have 2 course registration workshops, and I will post. Caitlin made up a very nice photo, and I will make sure to include this with the article that accompanies this podcast. But during week 4, Thursday, the 3rd of May, and Friday, the 4th of May, there'll be registration workshops. Thursday is 1 to 3 p.m., and Friday is 11 to 1. During week 5, it'll be Tuesday and Wednesday, that course registration workshops, although the Wednesday is online. Caitlin, for those online students who listen, and maybe even evening students who are unable to make some of these workshops, can you just describe what the online registration workshop is and how it differs from in the lobby on ATEC's second floor?
Yeah, so with all of our workshops, it's a drop-in format. We want you to stop by when you're able. So if you see it meets for 2 hours, that doesn't mean you need to be there for 2 hours. It means you just stop by. And then we're going to try to tailor that to your needs. So sometimes we have students that stop by and they've just have a very specific question, and we're happy to either try to answer their question or to point them in the right direction to get the answers that they need. And sometimes students stop by and they're just like, oh my goodness, I looked at this and I don't even know where to start. So we really tailor that to what each student needs.
I hear a lot of students that unfortunately have have tech issues with the online portal, and we did switch over, I guess, about a year ago to the new portal, and but I still consistently hear from students that they have some issues. And I think for me the biggest problem is I can't see that portal, so I can't even really go in and help them troubleshoot. And I think that's where I've heard a ton of people come down to you that kind of had an idea what classes they want to take, just struggled with the tech aspect of it because it is all online.
That's very true. And if you have already met with someone to figure out what classes you need, or you've been able to figure it out on your own and you just need help with the tech part, that's easy peasy for us because we have the same problem. We can't see the same thing either, but we've helped enough students with it that we really have figured out the ins and outs. And if you have a specific issue, there's a good chance we've seen it before and we can help you figure out how to fix it.
And Lancaster students also are going to have an opportunity Wednesday, May 9th from 4:30 to 6 in the Lancaster Center Computer Lab. And the final summer course registration workshop will take place Wednesday, May 16th from 11 to 1 in the second floor lobby. So before we get you out of here, Caitlin, so say a student's out there, new to campus, not quite sure how to navigate this registration process and are interested in coming to one of the workshops. What do you recommend that they bring with them so you can help them adequately?
We want you to bring your advising documents. So if you are a transfer student, you should have received a transfer evaluation during the admissions process. If you don't have a copy of that, you should definitely reach out to our office so we can make sure you get a copy of it. And if you are a first-time student at Central Penn, then depending on when you started, you should either have a degree matrix if you started spring 2017 or prior, or you should have an academic roadmap if you started summer 2017 or later. So it's really helpful if you keep those documents filled out and up to date so that we can easily go through and figure out what you have left to take, and you can keep track of that yourself.
But either way, so depending on when you came, you would want to use either your academic roadmap, your degree matrix, or transfer evaluation. So, Caitlin, as long as they bring one of those documents with them, you'll be able to help them, right?
Absolutely. And if for some reason you don't know where those documents are, we'd still be happy to help you. But if you have those documents and they're up to date, then that makes it really nice and smooth.
Well, I'll tell you what, we appreciate everything that you do. You guys often have candy out there. You guys are all very, very wonderful people in records and registration, and really we all want the same thing. We just want to make sure students are getting their classes scheduled on time, but really because we want them to get the right classes scheduled. Caitlin, I've heard so many horror stories of individuals who didn't reach out for help. I've had advisees that every term I'll email them and say, hey, please make an appointment with me, let's get you scheduled, and then down the line, maybe they don't talk to me, and then before it's too late, I have to break. You've taken 3 or 4 classes that you don't need and won't fit. So that can be an issue as well.
Yeah, it is, unfortunately. I know some students think that, the system won't let you register for a class that you don't need. But the way that our requirements are set up, it's just not possible for the system to catch some of those things.
Almost any class, really any class in many, many cases can fit somewhere. It's just how many of them you're taking might make a difference if it applies or not.
Yeah, so it's definitely helpful to ask for help so that you can avoid those situations because, sometimes when students take the wrong classes, they end up running out of financial aid, and that's just such a sticky situation that nobody on campus wants to see. So let's be proactive.
I unfortunately have heard that a few too many times. Well, Ian, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your experiences as a student with the registration process. And ever since you've been working with me, your schedule's gone pretty well outside of that canceled class. So.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, Ian. Thank you very much. And the Associate Registrar, Caitlin Copus. Caitlin, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come down to the Nightly News Podcast and promote your course registration workshops.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. All right. So for Vice President of Nightly News, Ian Kemmerer, and for Associate Registrar, Caitlin Copus, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll catch you next time on the Nightly News Podcast.